What's good, guys? It's your boys at the Gamble on Ginter podcast here back with another week of the NCAA Randomizer for football. Week 5, we're just getting started and getting going with the college football season. Last week, our randomizer wasn't as successful as it was the past week. We were 5-5 combined. Ryan did have a profitable week at 3-2. I went 2-3, so I took a loss. On the season, Ryan is 11-9. I am 10-10. We're getting going. We're starting to get a read on these teams. And if you don't know the rules, again, our producer puts 20 games within a wheel. He selects 5 games between the two of us. Whatever's been selected, we now have to pick. So we do our analysis and we try to pick the best game from each of the games. And now I'm going to give you a preface with all of my games. They're all going to be within 3-point spread. Let's get us kicked off. We have the Michigan-Wisconsin game, one of the really good 12 o'clock state of games that are going on. Michigan, again, they've shown that they want to run the ball 80 times a game. They go on the road to face a Wisconsin team who is laboring. Now, granted, they've had really 2 very hard matchups against Notre Dame in a neutral site and at home against Penn State. So they do have a ruckus crowd over there. However, I'm going to take the points with Michigan, +2. The line is a little bit tricky where I was kind of seeing, this is a trick line when it comes to, Wisconsin hasn't been good, but they're favored in this game because they're at home. It is a little tricky, but I am going to take the points and Michigan in my first game.
I'm actually a little surprised that they're not favored in this game, to be completely honest with you. So I do like that pick.
Home field advantage means a lot in college football.
I definitely get that. So kicking off my 5 games, I do have the Friday night game in BYU, Utah State. Now, this is an in-state rivalry. Utah State doesn't really put up much of a fight in this rivalry. BYU's been pretty good. They're ranked 13th this year. BYU's defense has given up 17 or less points in 3 of their last 4 games this year, and 2 of those games were against ranked opponents in Arizona State and Utah. Gave up 17 respectively in each game. Utah State's quarterback has been pretty bad. He's turned the ball over 6 times. He's thrown 5 interceptions. It's not going to fly against this BYU defense. Offensively, BYU doesn't put up a ton of points, and honestly, neither does Utah State. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the under 63.5 for this game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I think BYU dominates the ball offensively and then keeps them off the field defensively, just tries to run it down their throat. Low-scoring game, under 63.5.
It's worth noting, no one knows Utah football quite like Ryan. He is the best. He is the most elite guy when it comes to those 3 teams, Utah State, and BYU. Going on to my second game, it's a very good matchup at 2:30, which is the Notre Dame home start time that's given to them. Yes, it's going to be Cincinnati versus Notre Dame. Again, it's one of 2 games which 2 top 10 teams are playing this week. This is a trick line because Cincinnati, I feel like this has been the game that's been circled on their end forever. In order for the committee to take us seriously, we need to win this game. It is a lot easier said than done going into Notre Dame and beating a Notre Dame team. Yes, Cincinnati has a defense that can travel, but Notre Dame's got a really good defense too. I think they've played a lot of tough games, and that's really, giving them a chance to kind of come out of their shell, and you can't take away their performance defensively against Wisconsin. They absolutely dominated that team. I'm going to take Notre Dame at home, +1.5. Again, it's one of those things, it's close enough where you can just buy money line and you're going to get plus money on it. That's probably what I'm going to do for this game. I just think the atmosphere is going to be a little bit too much for Cincinnati. This isn't Indiana they're playing. Notre Dame's a different animal. They're a top 10 team for a reason, and they'll prove it in their game.
I loved Notre Dame last week as well, so I definitely love that pick. So in my second game, I do have FIU, FAU. We're South Florida boys. This is going to be a fun one. This is absolutely a rivalry match. Neither team's very good.
The Shula Bowl, as it's known as down here.
Neither team's very good. The game is being played in Boca Raton at FAU. Both teams are averaging over 400 yards of offense so far this season and just about as much on defense. So I think this game's going to be high scoring. The over-under was only 51.5. I actually bought down to 50.5 just because I love that 50.5 line. A 27-24 game will win this game for the over. I think there's going to be no defense played, all offense, no breaks. Over 50.5 at -130 is an easy bet for this one.
A ton of 15-yard penalties in this game.
It's going to be so
Keep
good.
an eye on it. So the next game I have is Oklahoma versus Kansas State. And when I got this game, I immediately yelled at my producer because it's always me who's getting Kansas State, and I feel like I'm 0 for life on anything involving the Kansas State Wildcats. So Oklahoma is going into Kansas State, and they are favored by 11.5 points, which I don't know if you've seen Oklahoma play recently. They don't look that good. But again, we know that Oklahoma, it's a matter of time. Their offense is good enough where they can flip that switch and turn it around.
You just never know when it's going to happen.
But again, how am I going to get, that -3 spread that I said? Well, I'm going to bet it first quarter. I'm taking Oklahoma -3 for the first quarter of this game. I want nothing to do with this game. I have it because I have to bet it. But I'm only watching the first quarter. I think Oklahoma gets a quick touchdown. They get a turnover. They really control the game. This is the game that they break out and have a really, really good game, at least in the first quarter. Give me -3 Oklahoma first quarter.
Love that. So now this game that I'm about to talk about is actually probably my favorite game out of the 5 that I was given. Nevada, Boise State. Boise State's played some pretty good competition so far this year. Both quarterbacks have started the year extremely strong. However, neither team really has a running attack. Boise State's running back has rushed for 96 yards over 4 games and 30 attempts. So he's averaging just over 3 yards per attempt. Now, Nevada is averaging over 430 yards per game, and most of that is going to be through the air. Carson Strong, like I said, has been phenomenal. Nevada is only allowing 144 passing yards a game. They're actually allowing more rushing yards per game than they are passing yards by 40. They're averaging 181 yards on defense. They're giving up against the run, and that is going to, I think, bode well for them. Like I said, the rushing attack for Boise State has been almost non-existent. They're throwing the ball through the air. Their quarterback's got over 1,100 passing yards so far this year. I'm going to take Nevada +7.5 against Boise State. I think people have gotten exposure to Boise State, but not so much to Nevada. And I think Nevada's going to surprise a lot of people. They are 2-1 on the year. I do think they're going to surprise a lot of people in this game. Nevada +7.5 at Boise State.
Now, this next game is one of the more interesting ones that you can have down south. It's the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Yes, the Blazers open their new stadium. They're going to have a ruckus crowd there in Birmingham, and they get to take on the Liberty Flames. Yes, Malik Willis and his offense goes into town to face UAB. Man, this is a public killing line all over UAB. I'm taking Liberty +3. Okay, listen, Malik Willis probably had his worst game of his college career in his last game. Yes, UAB's defense is great, but they played that Georgia offense, which, again, we don't think that's great, but they got some athletes, and they put 56 up on that UAB team. Not saying, hey, that's the team that we're going to see, but Liberty's got a good offense. Yeah. You can't just not come to play against that team. Again, it's highly public backing the Blazers. I think Liberty has a good enough team to be able to cover the 3-point spread, go in even to UAB, spoil the party, and take the game from UAB.
Oh my gosh, in their new stadium?
In their new stadium. Yes, sir.
Unbelievable. All right, so the randomizer was great to me this week. I have the Texas TCU game. I had Texas last week as well, and I did have them I only picked them for the first half, and I should have taken the spread for the entire game because they put up 70 against Texas Tech last week. So with that being said, I'm not exactly sure why the spread is as low as it is against this TCU team. Maybe it is because Texas is on the road at TCU. However, it's not exactly a road game because if you're from Texas, that's the school you're going to want to go to. So I think Texas is going to have a big crowd in TCU. I'm going to use Pete's word. It's going to be a ruckus crowd there at TCU for the Horned Frogs this week. Texas is scoring 47 points a game. Like I said, they scored 70 last week against another Texas team, Texas Tech. TCU hasn't really played the level of talent that Texas has played up until this point. Texas playing 2 different ranked opponents. Texas is rushing for 268 yards a game. That's just about in line with how much rushing yards TCU is giving up a game. They're giving up just over 210 yards a game. I'm going to take Texas minus 3.5 in this game. I usually would get it down a little bit more, but I think that this is going to be an easy win for Texas. I don't think that they're going to blow them out by 35 like they did last week, but 3.5 is definitely a good number to get it at minus 115 nonetheless.
Now, my last game is within the Pac-12, and it's between Arizona State and UCLA. I got the late game tonight. UCLA, I think, is one of the better teams that now no one's talking about because they lost to Fresno State. Now, Fresno State had to come back all the way through the rest of the field and throw up a Hail Mary and win against UCLA in order to cover that spread. It took a lot in order to get them into that position. UCLA still played a great offensive game throughout. Arizona State has a great defense. I don't think it carries into UCLA. Give me UCLA minus 3 at home. This is a good buy-down opportunity as well if you want that field goal. But I really like 3. I think 3 is a good number here. There's no need to buy down here. I also like the over in this game. It's 55.5. If I could trade one of my Oklahoma game and put just the over for this game, I would. But my play is going to be minus 3 UCLA. I think they beat them by 2 touchdowns.
Love it. All right, so I'm going to get into my last game. This is going to be between Ole Miss and Alabama. This one's going to be tough because Bryce Young has been probably the leading Heisman candidate, if I had to guess. 15 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season so far. Ole Miss is averaging 635 yards of offense.
Yeah, they can score. Matt Corral is a really, really good quarterback that they have.
635 yards of offense. 300 of those yards are coming on the ground. That's absolutely not going to happen this week. I'm going to take Alabama first half minus 6.5.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why. Alabama has covered this first half. They've covered their first half spreads in 12 straight games. They are 12-0 in the first half spread in their last 12 games. And I don't think it's going to stop this week, especially at home. Give me first half minus 6.5 for Alabama.
We're going to do something a little bit different this week. Me and Ryan are going to collaborate on some picks in college football where we have our absolute winners. We're going to collaborate. This is going to be not games that are given to us at random. These are going to be games that we've researched, we've seen, and that we like. So stay tuned for that. But these are our plays of the week, guys. Have a great night. Good luck in all of your bets.